Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, the governor was in the mountains today to discuss plans for rebuilding following the flood. And a House committee votes on whether to release former President Trump's tax returns.
Well, it felt like it should today, but we're tracking an Arctic outbreak heading for the mountains later this week. The latest on that potential for the late week mess coming up as Mountain News at 5:30 starts right now.
Dedicated to Southern and Eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. Several state and local leaders gathered in Knott County today to announce a project to create new communities on higher ground throughout 4 eastern Kentucky counties. Governor Andy Beshear announced the plans for the first part of that project. The Olive Branch community will begin in early 2023. This new development will be located in the Talcum area of Knott County near the Perry County line and will offer housing opportunities, recreation spaces, and possibly a new school.
This is a chance to give more hope and opportunity. These are going to be thriving neighborhoods with FEMA building in one place and Habitat building another and other groups at the same time. So it's going to take a lot of coordination, but it's really exciting to not just know we're going to build back, but we're going to be able to build more.
Governor Beshear says there are several sources of funding ready for this project, including the Team Eastern Kentucky Flood Relief Fund, Eastern Kentucky Safe Funds, State Transportation Funds, and several others. We'll have much more about today's announcement coming up tonight at 6 o'clock.
Well, calm conditions continue tonight and into tomorrow as we continue to await a big-time cool-down. And when I say cool down, I mean this thing means business toward Thursday night into Friday. Here's a look outside right now, Mountain Parkway at Slade. We've seen a little bit of sunshine this afternoon. All is quiet, headlights on as the sun continues to set out into the Wolf-Powell County line. 41 there. And glad to see downtown Whitesburg this evening. We're seeing those clouds continue to increase as the sun continues to set. Temperatures already in the upper 30s in parts of the Big Sandy. Heading into portions of the Kentucky River Valley, though, we're in the low to mid 40s outside right now. Most of the action off to our south. Future View trying to say we could see, or satellite and radar, I should say, trying to say we're seeing a little bit in the way of some sprinkly weather. I'm not exactly sure that's reaching the ground, but temperatures remain in the 30s tonight. We're cool, but seasonable as we head through tonight. Timing it out through the evening, 39 in the next hour, 35 by 10, down into the low 30s overnight. And heading into tomorrow, we're in good shape. Plenty of sunshine at times, highs near 50, but those clouds increase ahead of a big-time weather system for this weekend. The very latest on that coming up in a few minutes. Steve?
All right, Evan, thank you. A rarely used federal law that gives congressional committees the right to obtain the tax returns of any U.S. citizen has lawmakers discussing former President Donald Trump's tax returns today. CBS's Deborah Alfarone reports from Washington.
The House Ways and Means Committee is expected to vote on whether to publicly release former President Donald Trump's tax returns.
Given the confidential nature of the subject matter, I now move that pursuant to Clause 2G1 of House Rule 11, the committee proceed to executive session.
The Democratic-controlled committee received 6 years of Trump's tax returns last month when the Supreme Court declined to block their release to Congress, ending years of legal wrangling. Since then, committee members have been looking at his 2015 to 2020 returns, covering the time he was campaigning and serving in the White House.
We're in a position to finish some work that we started a few years ago, and we're going to see it through.
The timeline to release the returns was sped up when Republicans took control of the House in the midterm elections, and now they've promised to shut down the investigation into Trump's taxes when they take control in January.
Democrats sought the returns, saying they were needed to evaluate an IRS program that audits presidents. Republicans call it a politically motivated attack on Trump.
After nearly half a century, the political enemies list is back in Washington, D.C., and we worry this will unleash a cycle of political retribution in Congress.
Every president since Richard Nixon has voluntarily released their tax returns, except Trump. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
While the lawmakers deliberated behind closed doors about whether to release former President Trump's tax returns, they approved a vote to release a transcript of that debate at a later time in the interest of transparency. President Biden will head to Mexico in early 2023 for the North American Leaders Summit. The event is scheduled for January 9th and 10th in Mexico City. The Mexican president and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau are also expected to attend. National Security Council Coordinator for Strategic Communications John Kirby says the goal is to, quote, build on concrete progress for climate and environmental matters. Last year's summit was held in Washington. None were held during the Trump administration. The White House has a new plan to make it easier for humanitarian aid to continue flowing around the world. The U.S. announced the release of new general licenses earlier today. The licenses go to groups doing a broad range of work, including disaster relief, health services, as well as activities to support democracy and peace building. They cover official business of the U.S. government, the UN, the International Red Cross, or similar organizations. The provision of agricultural commodities, medicine, and medical devices is also covered under the measure. Officials say the licenses will make it easier for humanitarian assistance to go out in countries like Afghanistan and Somalia without concerns about U.S. sanctions. As Title 42 was set to expire, Supreme Court Justice John Roberts put a temporary hold on ending the policy. The emergency appeal was filed by a group of Republican-led states, and now Chief Justice Roberts is asking the Biden administration to respond by this evening. All of this as border communities and federal officials brace for an expected increase in migrant arrivals. CNN's Ivan Rodriguez has the latest.
People know that Title 42 is being lifted, and they're coming.
Title 42, a controversial pandemic-era immigration policy allowing officials to swiftly expel migrants at the U.S. border over COVID-19 restrictions, was set to end Wednesday until Chief Justice John Roberts put a temporary hold on its termination. El Paso City Representative Claudia Rodriguez says even if Title 42 remains, the humanitarian crisis isn't going away for either side of the border.
The people of Juarez are also not prepared for this. They're not happy with this. They haven't asked for this. And quite frankly, I mean, at this point, extending it is only going to push the problem over to them.
Shortly after the brief pause of termination of Title 42 was announced, one official with Customs and Border Protection saying, quote, everyone is breathing a collective sigh of relief, albeit a temporary one. Despite everything going on at the Supreme Court, the city of El Paso says it is getting ready for an influx of migrants as if the policy was still expiring Wednesday. A major concern, opening up more shelter space.
We want to make sure that we're prepared. We've heard that numbers are really big in Mexico right now in Juarez, and there's probably over 20,000 over there today that are waiting for Title 42 to be lifted.
One White House official saying the pause on the termination will not have any effect on what have been intensive behind-the-scenes preparations. I'm Ivan Rodriguez reporting.
Texas has deployed more National Guard members to parts of the U.S. southern border. Yesterday, Guardsmen were spotted along the southern border in El Paso, apparently in response to the buildup of migrants on Mexico's side of the border. On Monday, the Texas Military Department said it was increasing its presence there in part due to the pending expiration of Title 42, the Trump-era public health order that allowed the government to quickly expel migrants at the border. The Texas military says more than 400 National Guard personnel will assist with the migrant situation near the El Paso border. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, building wealth can change your life, but getting started can seem overwhelming. We'll give you 3 tips from a financial expert on how you can get on the right financial path.
Plus, very cold air continues to look like it's filtering into the region. The latest on that late week mess straight ahead.